Bir, tell us something about your latest film Aranyaka, which has been chosen for the festival.
The title Aranyaka, it's actually a Sanskrit word, which in English translation is like a trip into the jungle. Now the film, the basic theme of the film is how educated, cultured, sophisticated people sometimes commit mistakes in their life. But due to certain lack of basic disciplines, the nature of error becomes so grievous, which can be compared to what happens to cannibals. It's like relating yourself to the primitive nature of human being. And when that happens, what a human being reacts to that kind of situation and how it affects him. This is how the film leads to. So actually, as far as my interpretation goes, what I try to underline is that this insensitivity, it always affects human mind, but sensitivity or sensibility comes only during a critical moment to find a balance with the nature. So this is what happens in the film. The insensibility, how it comes and how it grips the human consciousness in such bizarre form that the same human being who has become a part of or become a slave to insensibility reacts and realizes to how to get over that kind of a situation. And this is how the film actually deals about.
Now, where does the jungle figure in the whole story?
See, in the story, actually there is situation connected with the hunting. See, the main character in the film, he is supposed to be from a princely family, and he has been educated abroad, but he lives most of his life in his ancestral home because of certain sentiments. But this person is very much fond of hunting, and he has a tribal boy who is very close to him, and he is an expert hunter. Now this boy uses his bow and arrow as the medium by which he hunts, even though he can use the gun. And in the film, what happens, a group of people, two couples, an army man and an English wife, and an Indian businessman and an Indian wife, are invited by this the main character for dinner. And during this course of this dinner, a strange interaction takes place between this couple. And then during the course of the conversation, they realize that Raja Sahib, the main character, has got many interesting experiences as far as hunting goes. So they told that, why don't you take us for a hunting expedition, so that we will also be able to share the same experience like you. And that's how the hunting starts. And that's why the jungle scene comes in. Actually, the major part of this film, it happens in the jungle. And that's where a series of incidents happens. And slowly, it unfolds the human psychological aspects of different characters. And gradually, it leads to a point where this underline of the theme is expressed.
There are a lot of scenes in the film where the sheer visual splendor has been captured so magnificently. How did you manage to do it? I'm sure your expertise as a cameraman helped, but did you have to labor quite a bit for the...
Yes, you see what, when I work on a film, and I go through different stages, and especially as I am concerned, I write my own script. Now during the scripting stage, the 3-4 stages even I go through, and initially I go through the literary output of my total thinking. I just keep on writing. Then I bring in the logical implication to the dramatic progress in the events that takes place. Then I come to the certain kind of style I would like to have as far as my the story, the movement, the development of the story goes. See, when I do a film, I write my own script, and while writing script, I go through different stages. The initial stage is I just try to put my total literary output and keep on writing whatever I feel like, without any having hindrance in terms of the technical part of filmmaking or what kind of film I'm going to make. I just keep on writing. Then I bring down the logical implication to the dramatic structure in the film. And then third stage is the kind of style we'd like to implant into the method of narration of the film. The fourth stage is the visual orientation. That's where I start drawing, or I start sketching, and every shot by shot I keep on drawing. And that gives me new ideas and how I should organize my visual pattern, visual design. Then I go to the location, I start scouting for the location, then try to see whether the location and the kind of the natural, the ambient quality of the nature existing in that location is corresponding to my thinking. And after selecting the right kind of a location and the right kind of atmosphere, then I start shooting. And that's why the visual quality is related to what I actually visualize and then how I try to get them. Of course, it becomes sometimes very difficult because sometimes what you think and then what you try to get, it becomes impractical because your imaginative faculty works on a different plane. Then when you go on the location, and the kind of problems you face, this also comes on a different plane. But somehow or other, I try to equate this, my imaginative faculty, and the kind of visuals I'm trying to get with all these practical problems that I'll be encountering, and then try to bring some kind of a semblance to it. And that's what I.
How do you feel as a director now? You've been a cameraman for so many years, and in the recent years you've shifted to direction. So has the transition been difficult, or has it been quite comfortable?
See, there is one problem in general term. You'll find that if you are adapted to one discipline, then you are trying to shift over to another discipline. The discipline in which you are adapted or you are very well versed with is going to be a hindrance for the next discipline, because the discipline like direction is very abstract in its conception, whereas cinematography as a discipline is very concrete as far as its execution is concerned. But when you are trying to shift over to this abstract medium, it needs a tremendous effort is required to transcend that kind of a nature inside you, which has been imbibed because of your constant association with that discipline, to a discipline which relates your nature and the character to a certain kind of abstraction. That problem is generally, it comes. The director, the one has to transcend oneself from that discipline to the plane in which tremendous amount of abstraction is connected with. And for that, one has to go through a rigorous process of the method in which a director functions. Like, for example, as I earlier told you, that when I start writing scripts, I invariably put a kind of a restriction of any kind of interference from my thinking of the technical aspects of filmmaking. That's why I start writing just what I feel like, and I just keep on scribbling on the paper. After I have done that, then only I come down to this level of the dramatic progress, the logical implication to the dramatic progress in the film. And that is how I try to see the time and space that is very much connected in the film as a medium, and how effectively it could be worked out. And it also gives me an opportunity to learn, because direction is a new line for me, because so far I was associated is a new line for me, and that's why when I go through this process which I mentioned you, it gives me an opportunity to learn, so that I could refine my whole nature, all approach to filmmaking, without being governed or being conditioned by the technical background from which I was associated with earlier. So that is why this process, this laborious process, was so much necessary for me to be linked up with the filmmaking process. And direction, as I mentioned to you, it is your nature has your whole approach and the method in which you are trying to indulge yourself in has to be too refined, and it has to have a three-dimensional aspect of visualization, because the cinematography only looks after the one-dimensional aspect of visualization, but in direction you have to have three-dimensional aspect of visualization. That is, you have to have a spiritual understanding, you have to have a psychological understanding, you have to have a material understanding. Now this three level you have to relate yourself, and that is why it's very necessary for a person to indulge in this discipline like direction, that he has to transcend his conditioning mind to a much more elevated form, so that it becomes much more translucent.
Would you continue to do your camera work for other directors?
Yes, if there is an opportunity, it comes. I don't mind doing work for some people, but then if the time permits. But what happens, because my indulgence in this field in such level that when I'm working on any project as a director, it takes away much of my time because of this process. Because as I told you, you see, for some people direction becomes much easier. For me, it's not so easy. It is very difficult, but in the sense I have to all the time try to overcome the condition that has been there at the back of my mind and try to transcend it. Probably in the course of that, it becomes natural. It will become natural. But till I feel that it becomes very natural inside me, then I will become much more mobile. So that problem keeps on interfering, because if again I start working with someone and at the same time I'm working on some project, then the clashes of this element takes place. That's the problem only I'm facing at the moment.
What's your next project you're working on?
I have just completed a new script, and it is something to do about the level of human moral understanding that is reached at present in our society. So I'm trying to have a reflection on that and try to find out, try to express the root or the basic by which can relate to the kind of a problem which has generated this kind of a situation, which is very chaotic, which is very disturbing, which is also very confusing, and that is the kind of a moral understanding within which a Indian youth is placed. Now that connection is to be evaluated on the basis of our older generation's understanding and their vision about the kind of life we are supposed to. The present state of moral understanding has reached to such a level that there is a certain amount of depression, there is a certain amount of distraction, there is a certain amount of confusion, and there is a chaos. Now in relation to that, the identity and the integrity of a person is very much connected, and that's why there is a tremendous depth in the form of a definite thinking or a well-defined thinking process, and because of the youth is very much at large. They didn't know what they're supposed to be and what is their future is supposed to be and what is their responsibility. Now they have taken up things like whatever is coming, you just take it up. But consciously there has not been the kind of a character which has been developed to do consciously, more concretely, more definitely, more positively. Because of that, this film will make an analysis of how and where things are going astray. This is how the
So
film.
you're going to set this in Orissa again?
Probably for a better, wider system of communication. And of course, the story is based in Orissa itself, but I may do it in Hindi.
The Aranyaka was your first.
Aranyaka.
Thank you.